Welcome into The Block. I'm your host, Emily Proud, and as always, Carl Reed is here, and we have a special guest, Brandon Marcello. Friends, we start the show with the most important position in football. That's, of course, quarterback. And as we get closer and closer to the start of the season, some of those quarterback competitions have solidified and starters have officially been named. So let's start up in Pittsburgh. Pat Narduzzi naming Kedon Slovis the starter after beating out Nick Patty. Narduzzi has gushed about this guy's accuracy, but Carl, in your eyes, why is he the man for this job?
Well, I thought when Kedon went to Pitt, it was never any question whether or not he was going to be the starting quarterback. I don't know what took Coach so long to name him as a starter, but he is a competitive guy, and he's going to want his guys to compete. They lost a first-round draft pick at quarterback last year. Kedon Slovis brings them immediate stability to the position, and a guy who was started a year ago at USC to potentially be a first or second round draft pick. If he can keep Pitt going, then Pitt can continue to compete at a high level in the ACC. I'm really excited to see what Slovis does at Pittsburgh this year.
Brandon,
everybody wants to compare him to Kenny Pickett. What are you going to do in place of Kenny Pickett? Here's the thing. Kedon Slovis has been able to come in and replace quarterbacks in the past, whether it's JT Daniels at USC, and he shined there. This will not deter him at all. This is an NFL-type quarterback in Kedon Slovis. He's going to put up big numbers this year at Pitt. I can imagine what it would have been like if Jordan Addison was still there. But still, he is a record-setting quarterback at USC. He still owns the completion percentage record there at USC. He's going to do very well there at Pitt. Gives them some stability in an offense that I think they're going to be running the ball a little bit more. But when they have to throw it and when he has to escape, Kedon Slovis is obviously the best answer at quarterback here in the post-Kenny Pickett era.
Yeah, you mentioned it, the post-Kenny Pickett era, and Narduzzi was asked about that, and he said, Kedon is Kedon, Kenny is Kenny. Wouldn't want anybody to try to fill Kenny's shoes. He mentioned that he wears a size 18, so that's a difficult shoe to fill in general. But Carl, are there heightened expectations for Kedon Slovis when you have to replace a guy like Kenny Pickett, who led them to an ACC championship?
Well, I think that those expectations are there because Pitt is in new territory now after having won in the ACC. But Kedon Slovis, I've talked to him all offseason. He wants those expectations. He went there because he wanted to be in that position. He wanted to go somewhere where the expectations were really high to be the guy and to have success. Now, also, you cannot discount the fact that Pat Narduzzi lost Pickett, and he was very upset about Jordan Addison. Coach is a very, very proud guy. He's as competitive of anybody that you'll ever be around. He's a competitive guy. And I think that he doubles down this year, and I expect for Slovis to lead Pitt to big-time football.
Brandon, I want to ask you, you're not just losing Kenny Pickett, you're losing offensive coordinator Mark Whipple. How much does that make an impact?
You know, I do wonder about that because the new offensive coordinator comes in from Boston College, where I was very impressed with how he was able to kind of mix in some of the old style NFL schemes we've been able to accustomed to see. They're running the ball very well at Boston College. At Pitt, they kind of want to get back to that a little bit after last season. Pat Narduzzi has made no qualms about that. He has mentioned that in the media several times. Does that take the ball out of Kedon Slovis's hands a little bit more often this season? I'm not so sure. The thing about Slovis I think is a little bit underrated is how he's able to escape pressure and extend plays. For example, I was watching film of him at USC when they're playing at Notre Dame. Notre Dame had a huge advantage in the trenches in that game, and Slovis still was able to get the ball off despite having pressure in his face on nearly every snap. I really love the kid's poise. He's going to do great at Pitt. Big first week test there against West Virginia, against, by the way, two former USC quarterbacks going after each other, with West Virginia's JT Daniels and Kedon Slovis going against each other.
So excited for the backyard brawl to be back. Speaking of transfer quarterbacks, let's head up to the Pacific Northwest and Washington, naming Michael Penix Jr. Yeah, that guy from Indiana. Spent 4 years with the Hoosiers, 3 years as the starter. Carl, what are your expectations for Penix in Washington?
I expect him to know the system because he has a history with head coach Kalen DeBoer, who was the offensive coordinator at Indiana, Penix's first year on campus in Bloomington. he kind of fell out of favor there. They decided to go with Connor Bazelak, transfer from the University of Missouri. But Kalen DeBoer is not a sexy name like a lot of other coaches, but if you are a football person, if you really understand football, he is one of the brightest offensive minds in the game. More of a pro-style guy that likes to play with tight ends and H-backs. But I think that he's a great developer of the quarterback position, and I expect for them to have some offensive success with Penix at quarterback.
Dare I say that Kalen DeBoer might actually be the best coach on the West Coast?
Ooh.
And I honestly believe that. This guy, Kalen DeBoer, what he was able to do at Indiana as the offensive coordinator there with Michael Penix in 2019 is fascinating to me. He completed 68.8% of his passes there. His production, Penix, absolutely tumbled after that. And again, Michael Penix is someone who's dealt with injuries his entire life. He's had season-ending injuries all 4 years at Indiana, cut short. If he could stay healthy and being reunited with Kalen DeBoer, there's no telling what kind of numbers he could put up. It won't be anything astronomical, but he is in store for a career season in retrospect to what he's been able to do previously at Indiana. When Washington, man, they were dreadful last season. And that's why they had to clear house there. The offense was historically bad, especially in the first half of the year. I really like some of the pieces they have there along the offensive line and receiver. And the thing I remember about Michael Penix is he will stand in the pocket until the very last moment. A lot of people want to say he's like a dual threat guy. Well, he had to run because he had to run at times at Indiana. But this guy's a pure passer. He will sit in the pocket, take all the heat he has to, and deliver passes down the field. I think he's going to do very well there at Washington. To me, among all the transfer quarterbacks, we want to talk about Caleb Williams, Kedon Slovis, Jackson Dart. To me, Michael Penix on the West Coast is the most interesting because I think he could have a season where we all go, oh, wow, we thought he was good at Indiana back in 2020, 2019, but he's even better now in a different system, working with a lot of different pieces there. I really like what Washington's going to be able to put together there with Michael Penix. They're going to get to a bowl game this season.
Now, Brandon, I want you to listen up. Your DMs are going to explode today with people from Eugene, Oregon, and LA fighting for Dan Lannon and Lincoln Riley when you say Kalen is the best guy on the West Coast. Now, Kalen is my guy. I've known him for a very long time. I just think the world of him as a football coach. He's among the very best of the best guys. And something to consider when you talk about the health of Michael Penix. Kalen DeBoer is outstanding with developing pass protection schemes and moving the pocket to keep his quarterback safe. I think he can be one of the best in the business at that when it comes to schematics.
Hey, bring on the DMs. I don't care. But listen, that offense, it's going to look worlds better than it was last season. And you just mentioned it there. That offensive line, some untapped potential there. And Michael Penix there, willing to sit back there and take some heat, deliver the ball downfield. I like where this offense is going to be at the end of the season.
All right, guys, we had enough excitement over on the West Coast. Don't want you guys going at each other. Let's head back out east for UNC, and Drake Maye is going to be the starter there, beating out Jacoby Criswell. And this was a pretty intense competition, and it could have gone either way. But I'll start with you, Brandon. Why do you think that Mac Brown picked in favor of Drake Maye?
The people I talked to at North Carolina just simply said that Drake Maye has a higher ceiling, but secondly, he gets the ball out quicker. And that's a thing for North Carolina in that system, number one. But number two, behind that offensive line, they don't have really a lot of confidence behind that offensive line. They need someone to make some quick decisions in RPOs, also just in play action, some of the things they want to do at North Carolina. He gets the ball out quickly, has a higher ceiling. We'll see how he does. I think that if he performs very well, he'll remain the starter. But I don't think they're going to be afraid to put Criswell back in there if they have to.
Well, Drake Maye has his work cut out for him behind that offensive line because Sam Howell had to run for his life a lot last season. But Drake's a super talented guy. An infield long goes offense, you got to be able to get the ball out quick, which Drake Maye can do. But there's a ton of great quarterbacks in the ACC, and there's a ton of big-time games on North Carolina's schedule when you think about the guys that they got to play. You want to see this guy stay healthy, and he is the future for North Carolina, so it made sense for them to go with him right now.
Yeah, but Carl,
he's got a lot of weapons still there. I mean, Josh Downs at receiver is absolutely incredible. He's got some good tight ends there. He could put up some big numbers in some of these games this year.
Yeah, Carl, I talked about how tough this competition was. Offensive coordinator Phil Longo said picking a starter was like picking his favorite child. What does that mean for their confidence in Drake Maye if they were just as close to picking Jacoby Criswell?
Well, I don't. A lot of people don't want to admit this, but everybody that has multiple kids will tell you we all have a favorite kid, even though we get it proven we love them. We say we love them all the same. One of them is the favorite. Deion Sanders is legendary for having the Suns rankings, and I implemented that in my own house. It was a tough competition for sure, but in the end, somebody's always the best guy to help you win. And Drake Maye was the best guy for the job right now. Phil Longo giving a little bit of coach speak, but this is a super talented kid that he's putting out here at the quarterback position.
Former Alabama commit, flipped to North Carolina, big time blue chip type of star. And again, has some weapons to work with. The deciding factor here, gets the ball out quickly. They need that in that offense and behind that offensive line this season.
All right, his name has already been mentioned on this program, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper into Jordan Addison. There's been a lot of conversation about him transferring from Pitt to USC, everything that's happened with the NIL, and we'll talk a little bit about a new NIL deal that he does have, but he told reporters after practice that the transition really hasn't been exactly what it was all cracked up to be. I'll read a quote from him. He says, quote, "The transition hasn't been as smooth as I thought it was going to be, but the family that they got here welcomed me in, and they have been helping me out, so they made it a lot easier." Carl, I know you've talked about this in the past. Is Addison alluding to the issues with the NIL deal, or is this something different?
Well, I think it's very loaded. I think that initially when there were reports that he hadn't received all his NIL deal, I think that obviously leads to some frustration. But there's a huge transition going from the East Coast to the West Coast. There's a huge transition going from Pittsburgh to LA. It's a different level of scrutiny. It's a different level of expectation. There's a different level playing for Pat Narduzzi and going to play for Lincoln Riley. They're two completely different guys with two completely different personalities. He was just playing with a quarterback that was in the first round. Caleb Williams, although talented, is still trying to find himself and take the next step as an elite guy. So I think that what he's going through is very, very normal. But he has got some significant NIL deals as well. But there's no surprise to me that a guy going from coast to coast had a little bit of uneasiness at the beginning and throughout the process, getting adjusted to the bright lights of Los Angeles.
You know what worries me about all this is that whenever I ask someone there at USC involved in the program what's going on with Jordan, I keep being told, hey, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. When I've always learned growing up that if someone tells me not to worry about something, that's when I need to worry about something, right? And I worry about Jordan Addison in that atmosphere there. He goes to being the big fish in a smaller pond at Pitt to being a big fish with a bunch of other big fish who want that star power around them. And sure, they're going to be successful at USC this year, but I've got my doubts that Jordan Addison is even going to be able to come close to replicating what he obviously did in a record-breaking year last season as a Biletnikoff winner at Pitt. And you want to talk about NIL deals and all that type of stuff, and certainly that makes you more comfortable, but living your life is much different, and money can only make you so happy. And so when he signs this NIL deal with United Airlines recently, right, and starts putting all these pictures up on Instagram of him sitting in the cockpit, saying, whatever he's doing in these photos, sitting there, that is a forlorn man. Look at that. Look how sad he looks in those pictures, just looking out the window as if he sees a plastic bag floating in the breeze with the American Beauty soundtrack blowing behind him. The good news, though, I would say this for any USC fans worried, is that if he wanted to fly to Pitt to watch the Backyard Brawl on a Thursday night before going back to LA to play in the season opener, there's no direct flights. United doesn't have any direct flights from LAX to Pitt. So he's got to connect. He can't make it. So don't worry about him leaving LA to go back home to Pitt, where I think he would have been more successful this year on an individual level.
Hey, Brandon, listen, cry me a river. At the end of the day, the kid made a decision. He was the Biletnikoff winner. He was already scheduled to be a first-round pick. He had a great quarterback transfer in the Pitt, and he made a decision to go to LA. And life is filled with decisions from big boys. This is a big boys game, and it's played with big boys rules. Nobody made you go to LA. Nobody made you go into the transfer portal. That's a decision that you made. And so you better make it work, because making it work is what's best for you, is what's best for your family, is what's best for the USC Trojans, who was your team now. But we can't make these decisions and then cry and say, woe is me. You there, you chose the bright lights, it's the big time, get it done, baby. I want to see the work on the field and the production. No excuses.
Absolutely. I'll say this. This should be, despite all the rumors and everything that's going on in the background, this should be a warning sign to a lot of players out there that if you're considering transferring somewhere and you're getting promised a lot of things, whether it's on the field or even off the field with NIL deals, make sure you feel comfortable with it all. You got it all lined up and secure that bag before you end up packing your bags. Because sometimes you'll go into a situation and everything they promise you is not exactly what they're going to deliver to you. Having said that, he's going to put up some good numbers this year. But Carl, I want to ask you this. Does he hit 1,000 yards receiving this year at USC in that offense?
Is Lincoln Riley calling the plays? Of course he hits 1,000 yards. Nobody has been better at getting guys open offensively than Lincoln Riley in that air raid scheme that he runs. It's not really the traditional air raid like Leach. It's a lot of other things going on. But he's going to use Addison inside. He's going to use him outside. He's going to run him in motion. He's going to match him up against safeties, against backers. He's going to use him in RPO stuff. He's going to have a huge season this year. He's got a good quarterback to throw him the ball. And the Pac-12 isn't known for having a bunch of stout defenses now. I think he has a big year. He may potentially not have as many yards and touchdowns as he had at Pitt a year ago, but may end up being a better football player. Both can be true.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that he's in a position there where he's going to be a little bit more well-rounded in that offense, and he's going to be much more creative in the way they use him. I think he finishes about like 1,100 yards this season, which is going to be fantastic in that offense. They're going to have potentially, I think, 2 1,000-yard receivers in that offense.
Whew, I'm so excited about watching USC this year. A lot of firepower there. Unfortunately, though, they do have to play defense, so we'll see how that goes on the other side of the ball. Guys, we actually have some games this weekend, so you're already making some picks about how many yards Jordan Addison is going to get. We got some fist pound here. We're going to actually pick the games in our first one. We're going to head out to Ireland. Yeah. We're playing college football in Ireland. Northwestern and Nebraska right now. Nebraska 13-point favorites over Big Ten, I'll call it rival, team that they play, Northwestern. They played last year, and this game was not even close. But Brandon, we'll start with you. Do they cover that spread?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it'll be as blowout like it was last year, but they will cover it. I'm very excited to see Nebraska this season. They're going to go to a bowl game this year. They might win 8 or 9 games, in my opinion. They've got the pieces in place. Quarterback Casey Thompson, the transfer from Texas, I think is going to fit very well in this system. He's not going to run as much as obviously Adrian Martinez did, who's now since transferred to Kansas State. It's going to look more I formation there at Nebraska. They're going to run the ball. They're also going to throw it, obviously, but they're going to run the ball, I think, very well. I really like Marcus Washington, the receiver, the transfer from Texas. I think him and Casey Thompson have a really good connection there. To me, Nebraska, though, I want to see a little bit more out of their defensive front. We'll see what's going on there. They struggled a little bit last season along the offensive line, but I'm hearing really good things from the offensive line here in preseason camp, especially at the tackle spots. I got Nebraska winning this one 31-14, covering that spread, maybe not being necessarily a blowout, but you're going to watch that game and go, wow, this looks like a different Nebraska team.
Well, I'm excited about watching Nebraska this year as well. I'm excited about the 2 Texas transfers and what they're going to do. Casey Thompson and wide receiver Marcus Washington. Now, I talked to Marcus about a week ago, and I told him it's put up or shut up time. You starting for the University of Nebraska, we expect big-time plays out of a kid like that. He had a lot of promise going into the University of Texas. Now, you alluded to the fact that we're going to see some I formation out of the Cornhuskers. You know that I love it. I'm a run the rock guy. If you can control the ball, running the rock, you give yourself a better chance to win. Northwestern does have a stout running game with running back Evan Hall. I expect to hear some noise from him, but Nebraska wins this football game. I think they win it handily. 31-24. Northwestern scores late in the game, a touchdown late, but Nebraska controls the game from start to finish.
Okay, I don't know if I'd consider that handily. I mean, what do you like so much about Northwestern that you think they're going to put up a fight against Nebraska?
They have a first-round draft pick on the offensive line, and they do have two good running backs. So I think they'll shorten the game a little bit. Nebraska will lead 2 touchdowns most of the game, but I do think Northwestern will score late in the game, but they are going to try to shorten this deal a little bit and control the line of scrimmage running the ball.
I like it. We tend to call that garbage time touchdown, so it doesn't mean a whole lot, but definitely helps it in the score column. Let's move on to Wyoming at Illinois. Illinois debuting a beautiful new turf field, and it seems like the odds makers think that that's going to help them this season. They've got them at -11, so they are favorites in this one. Brandon, what do you think?
I love the hire of Barry Lunney Jr. as offensive coordinator from UTSA. This guy is going to do wonders if he's untethered. As far as play calling there at Illinois. We know Brett Bielema loves to run the ball, and they're going to run the ball, but they were doing things this spring and in preseason camp that Brett Bielema never really ever does, and they're running out of the shotgun 90% of the time. They're going to be doing that in this game. Tommy DeVito, the Syracuse transfer, just recently named the starting quarterback at Illinois. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run it very well at Illinois. We all know that. I'm looking forward to seeing what Isaiah Williams can do there at receiver. I think Illinois is going to run away with this game. Wyoming lost a bunch of star power, lost their top 2 quarterbacks, lost their top receiver. I think they lost their 2 top linebackers from last season. They're not ready to announce who their starting quarterback is going to be yet, but it appears it's going to be Utah State transfer Andrew Peasley, who's very good, but he just doesn't have enough weapons. Illinois is going to push them around, do whatever they want. I've got Illinois beating Wyoming 35-17, but I would not be surprised if it's even worse from that. I can't wait. Again, another Big Ten offense. I know I can't believe I'm saying this. Big Ten offense is very exciting. I can't wait to see what Illinois looks like offensively because Barry Lunney Jr., that guy is going to end up being a head coach someday, and it's going to be because of his play calling on game days. What he did at UTSA was fantastic. He understands Bielema's system. He worked with him previously at Arkansas, so he knows how to balance keeping Bielema happy with running the ball so much, but also throwing it downfield and stretching things. I'm very excited to see what they do here. They're going to put up some points. Listen, worst passing offense by far in the Big Ten last year. I bet they're in the middle of the pack in the Big Ten this season.
There's probably no player in the country that's more excited about Barry Lunney coming to the University of Illinois than Isaiah Williams. Isaiah Williams is a guy who's going to be the star for the University of Illinois this season. They'll move him around a bunch. He's a multi-skill set guy. I remember coaching against this guy in high school, and I'm glad he's in the Big Ten instead of keeping me up at night. I think Illinois wins this game, but I don't think it's a blowout the way you think necessarily, Brandon. I still got to give respect to the program that Craig Bohl has built at Wyoming. The University of Wyoming is a tough football team. They'll run the power offense. They did lose quite a bit of star power, but they didn't lose Coach Bohl, who was the original architect of the North Dakota State dynasty that we have here. They have a freshman at Wyoming that's expected to play quite a bit out of St. Louis, Caleb Merritt, a freshman wide receiver out of John Burroughs High School, the same school that produced Ohio State great Ezekiel Elliott. I'm excited to see what he does, but I'm going Illinois winning this game 30-20.
And you guys got me all excited for week 0 games. This is supposed to be the little appetizer, the warm-up to the regular season. But we're going to finish off with, I think, a game that we all wish we were able to watch in person, and that's out on the island of Oahu. Hawaii is dogs in this one. Vanderbilt, 8-point favorites. Carl, who are you picking?
I haven't been excited to watch Hawaii probably since Timmy Chang was playing quarterback with June Jones. I'm going to go with Vanderbilt here. Clark Lee is trying to do a great job in moving his program in the right direction. I think they're recruiting well. I think he's laying a foundation. I'm going to go Vanderbilt winning a close one. Vanderbilt winning a close one at Hawaii, 30-28.
I like that pick. Listen, Vanderbilt is obviously more talented. They had a really good recruiting class this past signing class. They ranked 32nd nationally, which was their best class since 2013. Mike Wright, the quarterback, I really like as well. They're going to be able to do some really nice things and build off of him over the next couple of years. The thing about Hawaii is they're a great mystery. They've got 4 quarterbacks still battling for the quarterback job. We don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be. They got 53 new first-year players. It's a good thing that aloha means hello and goodbye out there on the Big Island, because they had 21 players enter the transfer portal from last season. They had 18, I think, starters from last season leave the team, whether through graduation or the portal. Had 12 new guys come in for the portal, plus the new guys from the signing class. No one knows what to expect from Hawaii. Those Vanderbilt coaches are just having to dig through the film. They're watching film of Eastern Washington and other schools because, remember, Timmy Chang has never been a coordinator. He's only been a receivers coach. They're watching that Eastern Washington offense, which they hired the former OC there to bring in to see kind of what they might be able to run there. Hawaii expected to throw the ball more. You expect that from Timmy Chang, right, with all those records he broke. But the personnel, it's all new. Everything's new there. So we'll see what happens. But Vanderbilt, deeper, more talented. I got the Commodores going there and winning 28-24 and finishing up a fantastic week-long trip out there. They arrived there Sunday, Vanderbilt did. I just hope they've been staying out of those pina coladas and those margaritas.
I love it. All right, guys, before we say aloha, and in this case it means goodbye, there are a few more games that we want to dig into. Florida State is hosting Duquesne. We've also got a nice tune-up there before they take on LSU in week 1, and then we get an early look at Drake Maye, who we all talked about earlier in the show, when North Carolina hosts Florida A&M. Any upsets here, Carl?
No.
No. Okay.
No. If it's an upset here, the seat's going to be scorching hot on Monday. No upsets here.
The only upset to me is if that Florida A&M North Carolina game bleeds into Vanderbilt, Hawaii at the late kick at 9:30 at night. That's the only upset. But let's see how Florida State looks in the trenches. Obviously, this is just going to be blowout after blowout, but Florida State, big week 2 game or week 1 game, so to speak, against LSU. That's a program definer for Mike Norvell. That's going to either get you going or it's going to have those questions popping up once again.
Tar Heels have a tough one week 1 as well against App State. It's going to be a fun little rivalry there. That is not an easy game for them by any means. Fellas, thank you so much. This was The Block. Be sure to tune in every Monday through Thursday at this time at 1 p.m. Eastern. And of course, always like and subscribe to the 24/7 Sports YouTube page. Enjoy our first weekend of college football action. We'll talk to you next week.